So let's go ahead and just do a practice problem to help before beginning the practice problems and homework for this section. So the U.S. Census Bureau conducts a study to determine the time needed to complete the short form. The Bureau surveys 275 people. The sample mean is 10.4 minutes, and there is a known standard deviation of 3.2 minutes. The population distribution is assumed to be normal. Construct a 95% confidence interval for the population mean time to complete the forms and answers the questions below. All right, so all I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this problem and I'm going to start to dissect it. So what is my population standard deviation? Well, it says there is a known standard deviation of 3.2 minutes. So that is the same thing. So I'm going to put 3.2 minutes. Right? What does the sample mean? It gives me the sample mean here of 10.4 minutes. 10.4 minutes. Okay, and it asks, what is the sample size? Well, I know they surveyed 275 people, so that's my answer. 275 people, right? What is the confidence level or the interval I'm trying to create? 95%. And again, I'm just given that in the problem. So I have the 4 items I need to solve this problem. So I am going to go over to Minitab and I'm going to start to put this stuff in so that I know what I need. Okay, so I'm going to click over to Minitab. I'm going to go to Stats, Basic Statistics, 1 Sample Z. And I'm going to click this little arrow right here and I'm going to put Summarize Data. Oops. And then when I do that, it pops up different stuff. So my sample size was 275. My sample mean was 10.4. The known standard deviation was 3.2. All right, again, all I'm doing is I already have it here for the stuff I need. I'm just putting it in Minitab. I'm going to go to Options, and I'm going to put 95 because that's the level that I want to test at. I'm going to hit OK, and I'm going to hit OK. And look, it gives me everything I need. Again, my sample size was 275. My sample mean was 10.4. I'm not going to worry about standard error, but then I go here and it's 10.022 is my lower bound. So I'm going to put this here, my lower bound. I'm going to scroll up some, is 10.022. And then I need my upper bound. So if I go back here, my upper bound was 10.778. So 10.778. All right, and I need to do my error bound margin. All right, so the way I'm going to do this is I can do 10.4 minus the lower bound. Oops, didn't mean to put that space there. All right, so I just need to solve that. So I'm going to get my calculator out. 10.4 minus 10.022 gives me 0.378, or I can do it as 10.778 minus 10.4 equals, so I put in 10.778 minus 10.4, and that gives me the exact same thing of 0.378. So the error bound margin is 0.378. And again, I got it right here. You can do it either way. Again, you can do sample mean minus the lower bound or upper bound minus the sample mean to get the problem. Again, so I answered all my steps and I can conclude that I'm 95% confident that the average time it takes somebody to complete the short form is 10.022 and 10.778. So that population mean is going to fall between that lower and that upper bound.